Hi everyone, my name is Elton Ivan Alvarez Escalera, and today we are going to check the communicative approaches as a dominant paradigm in LET. The objective of this unit is to analyze how communication language teaching, as we're going to name CLT, had influenced as a method in order to accomplish needs for learners. History of communicative approaches. Communicative language teaching is the dominant model in English language. It appeared in the 1970s, and it was influenced by the concept of humanistic methods, such as a silent way and Suggestopedia that we already checked in the Unit 3. As we already checked, the humanistic methods. CLT not only a concern for the learner as a participant in interactive communication, it concerns for the learner as an individual with different needs, which the teacher needs to be aware of. Learners seem to be varying degrees of motivation to the classroom. We can ask them how they remember how was to learn in different levels of English, and that will help. Teachers must pay attention in the process of learning with all errors that learners might show so they can learn about them. Because as already know, we always learn more if we analyze our mistakes. So this is a common way to do it. The reaction to earlier methods in CLT grew out of dissatisfaction with earlier methods due to the fact that they were centered on structure and tended to ignore language as a mean of communication. They always was centering maybe on the grammatical instead of the mean of communication. That is the first and meaning way every single time here in CLT. And CLT developed a broad theoretical base of its own that we're going to check over the presentation. What is CLT? As I already mentioned, CLT is communicative language teaching. It's a set of approaches rather than a method. There is no single text or authority on CLT. However, there is a general consensus of the main issues which are based on the communicative approach. And one of the most characteristic features of CLT is that it pays systematic attention to functional as well as structural aspects of language. Theoretical underpinnings of CLT. Language is a system for expression of meaning. Language is for interaction and communication. The structure of language reflects functional and communicative uses. So the learners can find more interesting to learn another language if they use it on social interaction, for example, and prioritizes the communication nature of language. The Council of Europe Modern Language Project mentioned that the learners needed to develop strategies to enable them to deal with the cut and thrust of real-time conversation. The learners needed to be taught the skills of the circumlocution, of asking of clarification on how to redirect conversation, because sometimes in different means of teaching is that learners can't redirect a simple answer in a real conversation. So they have to have the skill in order to answer those kind of conversations. And the development of the individual personality in both it is cognitive and affective aspects. There are many theories of language and communicative approaches, and we have Chomsky linguistic competence and Hines communicative competence, the Halliday's research, the Cannell and Swain skills in communicative competence, the implication of communicative view of language for CLT. There are many. We can read on the information that we have in the book. In the recent CLT approaches, The lexical approach reflects the movement away from a purely structural way of language. The theoretical basis for the lexical approach is that language consists in grammaticalized lexis, not the opposite. You have to start to see uh, the language as a purely structural way of language. And grammaticalized is it's at the end, so the grammar always comes on the end. The lexical approach in the classroom makes students develop the ability to chunk language successfully. So we can have different activities with that, which they can search for vocabulary, and that vocabulary has to be chunked in different words, such as big, and then the synonymous of enormous, and then the synonymous of large. So in that way, they can still coming for more information. And evaluation of the lexical approach, it's very different kinds for different teachers, but we have to be sure that the students are getting information in order to communicate with different interactions. So the task-based learning is they have to be in contact with maths, calculating, stories, and dialogues so they can practice. Now we're going to check the key features on CLT, which are many, but we're going to check it one by one. The roles of teacher and learner. We see teachers as facilitators of information, and students' security is enhanced because of the cooperative communication. The learner autonomy is that learners should have control over their own learning. It's self-directed learning. That is the main theme. And you have the learner training, which learners have to encourage new learning strategies and individual learning styles because every single student learns in different ways. The learning generating syllabi, it's that the learner has to generate a syllabus with a view of language of learning as a process of acquiring skills. The self-access that learning will select activities that they perceive to be useful in order to be more interesting for them. And the learner error and evaluation. Error is a natural part of the learning process, and the students can be successful communicators. To create a small group and a pair group, we do not have always the possibility to do it, but the collaborative learning is fundamental in the development of the competence. So if you have the opportunity to do it, try to do it. The use of authentic materials is that authentic spoken and written language is used by native speakers. So if we have different activities about language speakers, such as journals, or maybe we can find it in TV programs, we can go on in order to make them more interested on. Now, the rule of grammar on CLT is that new language is focused on a comprehensible context, and attention is first paid to meaning and function before turning to analysis and grammatical form. It is very important to check first the meaning in order to information can be used by the learner. So the learner is encouraged to work out and discuss the structures with the teacher as a guide rather than a transmitter of knowledge. Because as we already know and we checked on the reading, is that grammar is not the main theme in the main topic on CLT. Attention is first paid of meaning function. So the role of grammar would be at the end. Now that was Unit 4. And the Unit 5, the end of method, is that despite all approaches and methods invented by to date, we're not nearer to a universally appropriate and effective language teaching method. There are many methods, but we are not even close to be and select one of them. There is a fundamental weakness in the concept of method. So this is one of the reasons why methods have never succeeded. It is because the so-called ideal teaching conditions have never existed. For these factors affecting the success of language program, we have many different factors. The individual factors, the learner, the teacher. We have the sociocultural factors, the modernism, the elitism, the internationalism. And in different elitism here, for example, here in Mexico, many learners cannot see the language as elitism. Maybe in different counties, but here in Mexico City, it is not elitism. So people are not interested, and learners are not interested in, so they can't learn in a formal way. And the other factor is that culture and methodology is trying to adapt methodology and materials in different contexts. Because as you already know, there are different contexts in many different countries. The teacher and the learner has to adapt to their roles, and the teaching has to be a new culture. A new culture it has to be appropriate methodology. So this is why we don't have um, suggested a new method. So we have to keep going with these factors in order to avoid them. The idea of teaching a new language is difficult for many people, many learners, many teachers. But even in that form, we cannot stop. We have to improve all this. And at the end of all this, summing up, although CLT is still dominant paradigm in language, it is by no means the end of the road. We have to improve a lot of factors that are impeding our improvement. So the concern of learner as an individual, the view of language as including a communicative and social facet, as well as a purely linguistic one, and the concern of language as related to real life. We have to see the language in order to practice in real life. In my personal opinion, there are many ways to teach it. You have to choose the correct one because we have different contexts. So you cannot be in a state with only one in one state of being with one method. So you can improve different methods with different uh, types of learners, audiovisual, visual, kinesthetic. So this may be improved the way of teaching. Thanks for your attention. Really like to be with you all, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.